Hello everyone and welcome to Lost in the Reel. Today I'm going to be ranking the best and worst new release films of July 2022. So, let's do it. Before we get started, I saw 13 new movies this last month. These are films that were either released in theaters or onto streaming in July 2022. I will be ranking all of them from the worst to the best. Because there are so many different titles, I will be including chapters at the bottom so you can skip forward if you would like, or you can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the entire ranking. So, let's get started with the worst film of July, which also just so happens to be my least favorite film so far this year. My number 13 film is Hulu's The Princess, starring Joey King and Dominic Cooper. When a strong-willed princess refuses to wed a cruel sociopath, she is kidnapped and locked in a remote tower of her father's castle. With her vindictive suitor intent on taking her father's throne, the princess must save the kingdom. The creators of this new medieval action flick, The Princess, have stated that their inspiration was Rapunzel meets Gareth Evans' masterpiece, The Raid. And sure enough, watching the movie, you can completely get what these writers were attempting to cook up with their movie. But their vision stops there. Without any creativity or finesse, Vietnamese director Le Van Kiet has crafted a soulless, half-baked imitation of a movie that left me completely numb by its end. One of the many things The Raid had going for it were the breathtaking action scenes that introduced the world to Indonesian martial arts and pencat silat. On the other hand, The Princess is full of unremarkable, uninteresting sword fighting and hand-to-hand combat scenes that all blend together in a way that made them feel tiresome and unrelenting. It's never good when 15 minutes into an action film, you start dreading the next action scene. The Princess is the definition of lazy filmmaking in every department of production. The writers obviously thought they had a great idea here, and I do think in others' hands, this could have been really fun. I think where our creators went completely wrong here is when they decided to take their movie so seriously. If they had made this more akin to a hard R, Ella Enchanted, or Monty Python and the Holy Grail, with lots of silly and self-aware medieval humor, and a couple of creative kinetic action scenes thrown in, this would have been so much more entertaining. But as is, there is literally zero fun to be had with The Princess. Next up, my number 12 of July is sadly GKIDS anime, The Deer King. The movie follows the last survivor of a band of warriors who is enslaved in a salt mine. One night, savage dogs attack and a mysterious disease wipes out everyone at the mine. The warrior escapes with a little girl, while a gifted physician looks for a cure. I have a full review on my channel for this one, so I won't go into too much detail. If you want to go watch that right now, a link is right up above. But being a huge anime fan, this was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. It's the feature directorial debut of the animation director of Spirited Away, Paprika, and Your Name. So obviously, it's a beautiful film, but it lacks in every other department, especially in character development and story. I never felt connected to anything happening up on the screen, and so this is my most disappointing film of the year so far. Moving on to my number 11, and that goes to Gone in the Night, starring Winona Ryder and Dermot Mulroney. The film follows Kath and her boyfriend, who arrive at a remote cabin in the Redwoods, and they find a mysterious younger couple already there. Her boyfriend disappears with the young woman, and Kath becomes obsessed with finding an explanation. Gone in the Night from Homecoming co-writer Eli Horowitz is a psychological thriller that preys on our deep fear of aging in a society that glorifies youth. It is a film that will keep you guessing until the final act when it all falls apart in its implausibility and absurdity. You see, this is one of those movies that completely revolves around its big twist. It rides or dies on that climactic swing for the fences moment, and because Horowitz isn't able to pull it off, the rest of the movie feels like a waste of time. I have to give credit where credit is due though, and I appreciate that Gone in the Night wasn't afraid to go full on batshit insane in its final act. I just don't think that the twist is as intelligent or groundbreaking as Horowitz believed it was while co-writing the screenplay. It's always great to see Winona Ryder be given the chance to show off her considerable talents though. Sneaking into the top 10, we have my number 10 of July 2022, Hulu's Not Okay, starring Zoe Deutsch and Dylan O'Brien. The movie is about an ambitious young woman who finds followers and fame when she poses as the survivor of a deadly attack. But she soon learns that online notoriety comes with a terrible price. This is another film I have a full review for on my channel, so I will keep my thoughts short. Not Okay is a movie that has continuously stuck with me since the moment I watched it. Part of me couldn't stand the cringe comedy, drastic tonal shifts, and my overall distaste for our lead character. But the other part of me was fascinated by her story arc and the very profound, thought-provoking messages and themes that the film was trying to tackle. And from the reactions from viewers who have watched Not Okay, it looks as if audiences are split right down the middle with this one as well. Landing in my number 9 spot is Where the Crawdads Sing, starring Daisy Edgar Jones and based on Delia Owens' best-selling novel. It follows a woman who raised herself in the marshes of the Deep South and becomes a suspect in the murder of a man she was once involved with. Once again, I have a full review for Where the Crawdads Sing up on my channel if you want to check it out, but I quite like this film, although I thought it was extremely slow-moving at times. I went into this thinking it was going to be a mystery, which it barely is, and the court proceedings following the crime are a total bore, but it's much more of a character study. And I'm okay with that, but it did throw me for a loop. I think Daisy Edgar Jones is captivating in the lead role, and I found her story to be just intriguing enough to recommend. Also, on a side note, since this movie has come out, I've seen a ton of people out and about reading this book. So to see this film be a catalyst to push people to start reading again is just a wonderful thing. Next up, my number 8 is The Forgiven, starring Jessica Chastain and Ralph Fiennes. The Forgiven takes place over a weekend in the high Atlas Mountains of Morocco and explores the reverberations of a random accident on the lives of both the local Muslims and Western visitors to a house party in a grand villa. The Forgiven is a movie certainly not for everyone. It feels very old-fashioned in its sensibilities, yet as if it could only be brought to the screen and accepted in this modern day and age. It also feels as if it is two completely different films that are running perpendicular to each other and never quite end up meeting in the middle to come together. One part is a socially conscious meditation on white privilege, class, and bad behavior, while the other one is a morality tale and redemptive character study. Unfortunately, because we keep jumping back and forth between the two, neither of these very different story arcs ever feel as if they've reached their full potential. But the incredible ensemble cast, including Ralph Fiennes, Jessica Chastain, Christopher Abbott, Abby Lee, Matt Smith, Saeed Taghmaoui, I think that's how you say it, and Caleb Landry Jones are all at the top of their game. And the screenplay also contains extremely effective pitch black humor, thoughtful musings, and crackling banter that fully kept me engaged for the entirety of the runtime. I just wish that The Forgiven was able to flesh out its two story arcs in a more effective way, because the finale didn't necessarily feel earned, and thus it never came together for me. But it's certainly a unique and beguiling film, that's for sure. Straight on to my number 7 of the month, and that goes to the Netflix true crime documentary, Girl in the Picture. The film is about a young mother's mysterious death and her son's subsequent kidnapping that blows open a decades-long mystery about the woman's true identity and the murderous federal fugitive at the center of it all. Girl in the Picture is definitely one of the better true crime films of 2022 so far. Though at times I felt like it was teetering on the edge of being exploitative, luckily the director shows restraint and reins it back in. My jaw was dropping constantly throughout the entirety of the movie as it continuously throws shocking twist after shocking twist at you. By the end, I feel as if I got whiplash and lockjaw by the sheer amount of disturbing and horrifying revelations Girl in the Picture contains. And as riveting and truly unsettling as the true story is, this film would not be nearly as great as it is without the final 10 minutes or so, that really pays respect to the victim of this tale, who through such great suffering still exemplified so much strength. This is definitely a must-watch for any fan of true crime. Next up is my number 6, and that is another Netflix original, The Gray Man, starring Ryan Gosling, Ana de Armas, and Chris Evans. The movie follows the CIA's most skilled operative, whose true identity is known to no one. When he accidentally uncovers dark agency secrets, a psychopathic former colleague puts a bounty on his head, setting off a global manhunt by international assassins. Although gratuitously over the top and generic in its storytelling, The Gray Man is an absolutely exhilarating thrill ride, and one of the best blockbusters of 2022 so far. This film is excessive in nearly every way, and you can feel your Netflix subscription price raising with every explosion, car chase, and elaborate stunt. But the action set pieces in this film are so creatively shot and skillfully choreographed that each one left me increasingly breathless. The Russo brothers really started off their post-MCU careers in a disastrous way with Cherry, a dour misfire that took itself far too seriously. Luckily, The Gray Man doesn't make that mistake, keeping things mostly upbeat, with tongue-in-cheek humor, and an overall feeling of nail-biting, globe-trotting fun. Ryan Gosling is like a cheeky, amped-up version of his character in Drive, creating a compelling action hero that I can't wait to see in future installments. But for me, Chris Evans steals the show as the insane psychopath Lloyd. I am loving seeing the Chris's from the Avengers thriving in villainous roles. All in all, though the story isn't anything to write home about, The Gray Man makes up for that with its style, spectacle, interesting cast of characters, and mind-blowing action. And with the recently announced sequel, I'm looking forward to seeing this become one of Netflix's strongest franchises. Getting into the top 5, we have my number 5 of July, Jordan Peele's third feature film, Nope, starring Daniel Kaluuya, Keke Palmer, and Steven Yeun. After random objects falling from the sky result in the death of their father, ranch-owning siblings OJ and Emerald Haywood attempt to capture video evidence of an unidentified flying object with the help of tech salesman Angel Torres and documentarian Antlers Holst. Nope was one of my most anticipated films of the year, and with huge expectations and glowing reviews out of the gate, I guess I was expecting more, but by no means does that imply that this is a bad film or I didn't have a blast while watching it. In fact, I think Nope is one of the best films to come out this last month. It just won't be in my top 10 of the year as I was expecting it to be. And that's okay. I love that Nope can be enjoyed as just a fun summer blockbuster, or it can be picked apart as a commentary on the entertainment industry. Whatever you're in the mood for, it can satisfy your needs. The cast is also fantastic, with Kaluuya proving once again that he is one of the finest performers of his generation, and Keke Palmer going balls to the wall with so much energy and charisma. They are the perfect foil for each other and one of the best duos of the year. The OA's Brandon Perea also gives one of the breakout performances of the year. My last giant positive for Nope is its epic and dazzling cinematography by Christopher Nolan mainstay Hoyt van Hoytema. The way the Dutch cinematographer is constantly averting your gaze to the skies ratchets up the tension to such dizzying heights and makes Nope worth seeing on the biggest screen possible. My biggest issue with Nope is that while Jordan Peele has made his most impressively crafted film to date, it seems as if all of his energy went into directing it and not into penning all that great of a screenplay. There are a lot of missed opportunities here, and not everything seems to come together by the end. This is most apparent with Steven Yeun's storyline, which gives the movie some real weight and what really drives home Peele's commentary, something that we expect and yearn for from the auteur. But it comes off as a little half-baked and underdeveloped, which is kind of how I feel about the film as a whole, which makes me think that Peele needed at least another 30 minutes or so to flesh out his ideas, or go through a few extra revisions of his screenplay. Even if Nope is Jordan Peele's weakest film, it's still 95% better than anything else being churned out by the Hollywood machine nowadays. This remains a film that I cannot wait to go back to again, especially to unpack all of its hidden meanings and intricate details. And with no preconceived notions about its quality, I will probably appreciate it a lot more a second time around. Moving forward to my number 4, which is Netflix's animated film, The Sea Beast, which is about a young girl who stows away on the ship of a legendary sea monster hunter, and they launch an epic journey into uncharted waters to make history. The Sea Beast is a mixture of beloved animated films like How to Train Your Dragon, Treasure Planet, and even director Chris Williams' own Moana. But it also harkens back to old-fashioned swashbuckling adventures and even dabbles in darker, more strange fantasy material that reminded me of something you'd see in an obscure 90s animation. All of this to say that this amalgamation of tones and genres really works and makes The Sea Beast a breath of fresh air in the black hole of IPs and sequels that make up most family fare. And if you were expecting any less of the animation, since this is landing straight onto Netflix, think again. You can feel Chris Williams' expertise from his time at Disney on every frame of The Sea Beast. This is a dazzling, visually stunning beauty, and I only wish that I could have experienced it in a movie theater. This is the perfect film for families because it has just the right amount of silly humor for kids, epic action spectacle for the adults, and a genuine amount of heart for all. There are also a lot of great underlying messages and themes in The Sea Beast that will make repeat viewings even more rewarding. I particularly like this subtext of not believing what others tell you, but to think for yourself and create your own beliefs based on lived experiences. Suffice to say, there's a lot more here than just pirate shenanigans and cutesy creatures. If I were to harp on anything about The Sea Beast, it's that although it is an original piece, everything about it does seem all too familiar. I don't think the screenplay did enough to differentiate itself and elevate it above others like it. But you will have a hard time noticing all of that when you are watching because you will be so enthralled by the breathtaking craftsmanship and artistry up on your screen. The Sea Beast is a huge hit that families will instantly fall for and kids will want to revisit over and over again. Next up, my number 3 film is Focus Features Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, starring Leslie Manville and Isabelle Huppert. The film tells the story of a widowed cleaning lady in 1950s London who falls madly in love with a couture Dior dress and decides that she must have one of her own. After she works, starves, and gambles to raise the funds to pursue her dream, she embarks on an adventure to Paris, which will change not only her own outlook, but the very future of the House of Dior. Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris will go down as the definitive feel-good crowd pleaser of 2022. Leslie Manville is absolutely intoxicating as our titular protagonist, bringing such levity to a role that could have gone awry at the hands of any lesser performer. I fell in love with Mrs. Harris, her exuberance, her conviction, and her willingness to continue to dream when all seems lost. Though a tad overlong and admittedly far-fetched at times, the film is unapologetically syrupy sweet in the best way. Humanity hasn't had the best track record as of late, but Mrs. Harris just might make you believe in it again. This one will be on replay in my house for years to come. In the runner-up spot, my number 2 is another film from Focus Features, Vengeance, starring BJ Novak, Dove Cameron, Issa Rae, Boyd Holbrook, and Ashton Kutcher. The film follows a writer from New York City who attempts to solve the murder of a girl he hooked up with and travels to Texas to investigate the circumstances of her death, in hopes that he can turn it into the next big true crime podcast. Vengeance is a hard-boiled mystery, a pitch-black comedy, a haunting cautionary tale, an introspective drama, and a good old slice of Americana, all wrapped into one. BJ Novak, who starred as Ryan Howard on the US version of The Office, plays to all of his strengths here as writer, director, and star. Though Novak as a performer always feels as if he is playing himself, a smarmy, overly confident, yet likable everyman, he has written the perfect lead character for him to sink his teeth into. Though direction-wise, Vengeance doesn't have a whole lot of bells and whistles, his screenplay is what really packs all of the punch. I was not expecting to fall in love with the characters in this film, but that is exactly what happened. Although Novak is front and center, he allows his supporting actors to shine, creating a richly crafted bunch of players to be ensnared in this twisted web alongside him. Boyd Holbrook and J. Smith Cameron are the standouts, but really everyone from Issa Rae to Dove Cameron and Ashton Kutcher are all outstanding. Really, my only qualm with the film is that I wanted to spend more time getting to know these people and seeing their arcs further fleshed out. And because of that, I think Vengeance would have worked even better as a limited series. As the credits rolled, I was left shocked due to the jaw-dropping finale, but also in a deep state of contemplation. This is such a thought-provoking movie that touches upon the division of our society, the ugliness of elitism, and the way in which our culture consumes all that is good and spits it right back out. The melancholy that took hold of me by the end doesn't take away from how heartfelt and hilarious this movie is as well. Vengeance is yet another original film this year that has bombed at the box office, but deserves to be seen. And finally, we have reached my favorite film of July 2022. My number 1 is Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, starring the voice talents of Jenny Slate and Isabella Rossellini. The film is about Marcel, an adorable 1-inch tall shell who ekes out a colorful existence with his grandmother Connie and their pet Lint, Alan. Once part of a sprawling community of shells, they now live alone as the sole survivors of a mysterious tragedy. However, when a documentary filmmaker discovers them, the short film he posts online brings Marcel millions of passionate fans, as well as unprecedented dangers and a new hope of finding his long-lost family. Who knew that a film about a shell with a pair of shoes on would be the life-affirming masterpiece that we all need in our lives right now? Dean Fleischer Camp has created a movie that is absolutely laugh-out-loud hilarious from beginning to end, but also a powerful, melancholy, whimsical, touching, heartfelt, adorable, and inspiring one as well. There are thousands more adjectives that I could throw at Marcel because it truly is so many wonderful things all at once. I was also extremely taken aback at how beautifully and creatively this film was animated and shot. With such humble roots and a shoestring budget, Camp has crafted a film that feels so grand. Being able to see the world from Marcel's point of view really puts everything into perspective. I have a lot of friends and colleagues who have sadly written this off as just a silly kids movie, and while Marcel certainly was made for the entire family to enjoy, it is so much more than what meets the eye. So please, if you have any reservations about watching this film for whatever reason, put those aside and give Marcel the Shell with Shoes on a chance, because it will put a smile on your face, a tear on your cheek, and fill your belly up with laughs. It is one of the finest films of 2022, and one that I will not soon forget. So, there's my ranking of the best and worst new release films from July 2022. I would love to hear all of your thoughts and your own personal ranking in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, my friends, and until next time, take care.